Welcome back to The First Why, the channel where we dig past the surface and find the deepest reasons behind who we are and why we survived when so much stood against us. Today, we are talking about fire, cold, and the razor-thin line between existence and extinction. Think about the last time you felt a little bit chilly. Maybe you grabbed a sweater or turned up the thermostat in your living room. Simple. Easy. Problem solved in seconds. Now imagine the thermostat is broken. The sweater does not exist. In fact, imagine that the entire world has turned into a giant freezer with no off switch and no escape. This was not just a bad winter for our ancestors. This was the reality of the Pleistocene Epoch, a time we commonly call the Ice Age. Around 2.5 million years ago, the Earth decided to change the rules of survival. Huge sheets of ice began to crawl across the continents, swallowing forests, rivers, and entire landscapes. In some places, these glaciers were 2 miles thick, a wall of ice taller than most mountains, thick enough to bury cities we have not even built yet. At the peak of this freezing era, 30% of the entire land surface of Earth was buried under ice. For context, today, it is only about 10%. That difference alone tells you how brutal this world once was. Imagine walking through what used to be a lush green forest, birds singing, rivers flowing, animals grazing. Now that same land is a frozen tundra where the wind never stops howling, and the silence is broken only by the crack of shifting ice. In places like Europe and North America, local temperatures did not just drop a little bit. They plummeted by 20 degrees Celsius or more. That is the difference between a warm spring day and a brutal but chilling freeze that never lets up. For a creature like a human, this was a death sentence. We do not have thick fur like a woolly mammoth. We do not have a layer of blubber like a seal. We are essentially tropical monkeys that lost our hair somewhere along the evolutionary road. We are built for the warmth of the African sun, not the biting frost of a global winter. But here is the twist. The cold was not even the biggest problem our ancestors faced. About 930,000 years ago, something truly terrifying happened. Scientists call it a population bottleneck. It is a polite, almost clinical way of saying that humanity almost went completely extinct, according to a genetic study published in 2023. The global population of our ancestors may have crashed by as much as 98.7%. This finding is still debated among researchers. Science does not always agree on numbers this dramatic, but if it holds true, the implications are staggering. If you had a room filled with 100 people, only 1 or 2 would be left standing. The rest would simply be gone, erased from the story of humanity forever. For roughly 117,000 years, the entire human race may have consisted of only about 1,200 individuals. That is not a city. That is not even a small town. That is barely enough people to fill a single high school gym. And here is the part that should give you chills. Every single human being alive today may be a descendant of that tiny group of survivors. We are the children of the ones who did not give up, who did not freeze, who did not starve, who did not become dinner for something with teeth much bigger than ours. So how did those 1,200 people stay alive in a world that was actively trying to freeze them to death? The answer is a flickering orange light. We often think of fire as something humans just discovered one day, like someone tripped over a rock and accidentally invented a lighter. But the relationship between humans and fire is far more complex, and far older than that. It started with something called fire sitting. Nearly 1.8 million years ago, a species called Homo erectus began to do something remarkably brave. They stopped running away from wildfires. Most animals, when they see a forest fire, run for their lives. But our ancestors looked at the smoke and saw something different: opportunity. They realized they could capture a burning branch from a natural fire, something sparked by lightning or volcanic activity, and carry it back to camp, keeping it alive. This was fire sitting. For over 1 million years, humans were essentially professional babysitters for embers. If the fire went out, they could not simply relight it. There was no flint, no lighter, no backup plan. They had to wait, sometimes for months or years, for another lightning strike or volcanic spark to come along. In the meantime, they carried glowing coals in hollowed-out gourds or wrapped tightly in thick moss, guarding those embers like they were the most precious jewels on Earth. Interestingly, evidence from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa suggests that early hominins were already controlling fire in this way, as far back as 1 million years ago, showing just how long and how gradual this relationship with flame really was. It was not until about 400,000 years ago that we finally cracked the code of fire making. We finally learned how to create the spark ourselves, on demand whenever we needed it. Evidence found in Suffolk, England, shows that humans were using flint and iron pyrite, striking them together to generate sparks. This single breakthrough changed everything. Suddenly, we did not have to wait for nature to hand us a gift. We held the power of creation in our own hands. This technology became our passport out of the tropics. Fire allowed us to push deep into the frozen north, into places where no naked, hairless ape should ever have been able to survive. But why was fire so effective? It solved 3 massive, life-threatening problems all at once. Problem number 1, obviously, was the freezing cold. Without a reliable way to stay warm, humans cannot survive prolonged exposure to temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius. Fire created what scientists call a microclimate. It turned a freezing, damp cave into a cozy, livable home where the temperature was suddenly manageable, even survivable, through the harshest winters. Problem number 2 was starvation. Eating raw meat and wild tubers is incredibly hard work for the human body. Your stomach and intestines have to spend an enormous amount of energy just breaking down those tough fibers and dense proteins. It is slow, it is inefficient, and in a world of scarce calories, inefficiency can kill you. But when you cook food, you are essentially pre-digesting it outside of your own body. The heat breaks down complex molecules for you before they even reach your mouth. This is known as the cooking hypothesis, an idea popularized by anthropologist Richard Wrangham. By cooking our food, we were able to extract 30 to 50% more calories from every single bite. That extra energy went straight to our brains. In the animal kingdom, digestion is expensive, and so is thinking. Both processes compete for the same limited fuel. Because fire did the heavy lifting that our gut used to handle, our digestive tracts could actually shrink over evolutionary time. That freed up energy was redirected to fuel a growing, increasingly hungry, increasingly powerful brain. Without fire, we would likely still have the small brains of our earlier evolutionary cousins. In a very real sense, we cooked our way into becoming the smartest species on the planet. Problem number 3 was predators. Before fire, humans were basically snacks walking around on 2 legs, easy prey for the megafauna of the Ice Age. Imagine trying to fall asleep while a giant short-faced bear, taller than a grizzly, or a saber-toothed cat, is prowling in the tall grass just meters away. Our ancestors likely slept in trees, much like chimpanzees do today. It was one of the only reliable ways to stay out of reach of the things that go bump in the night. But once we had fire, everything changed. We could sleep on the ground, Predators have a deep, almost primal fear of flames, and a campfire created a circular wall of safety around the group. This breakthrough allowed us to move into caves permanently. It gave us a dedicated space to rest, to heal, to bond with one another, and to share stories, laying the very foundations of human culture as we know it. Fire was not just a tool for survival. It was the first piece of technology that allowed us to manipulate our environment to suit our own needs, rather than simply enduring whatever nature threw at us. It allowed early humans to settle at sites like Gesher Bedo Yaakov in modern-day Israel. This remarkable site shows that early humans were already processing various foods with fire nearly 800,000 years ago. A pit stop, in a sense, on the long journey out of Africa and into the rest of the world. When you look at something like the Laurentide ice sheet, which once buried nearly all of North America under 2 miles of solid ice, it is genuinely hard to imagine anyone surviving there at all. But our ancestors did not just survive. They thrived because they carried the sun in their pockets, wherever they went, into whatever frozen wasteland stood in their way. Every single time you turn on your stove, light a candle, or sit around a bonfire with friends, you are participating in a tradition that is nearly 2 million years old. We are the species that tamed the flame. We are the descendants of the survivors of a frozen world that tried its absolute best to wipe us out completely. If those 1,200 people had lost their fire, even for one critical winter, you would not be here watching this video right now. Their persistence, their stubbornness, their refusal to let the embers die, that is the entire reason we exist. So the next time you see a small flame, whether it is a candle, a stove, or a campfire, remember what it actually represents. It is not just heat and light. It is the bridge between a frightened, freezing animal hiding in a tree and a modern human capable of reaching for the stars. Fire was the first why. It was the first reason we were able to step out of the shadows and into the light of history. And that is exactly what this channel is all about. Thank you for exploring the origins of our survival with me today. If this video made you think differently about something as simple as a flame, make sure you are subscribed to The First Why, because there is always a deeper reason behind why we are the way we are. Stay curious, and I will see you in the next one.